Some of the other things, though, are obviously beyond, like levitation, which you don't see too often, but the morphing, the changing.
The head injuries won't make you levitate. Might make you feel like you're levitating, but you will not levitate.
You will not levitate.
You've witnessed levitation?
Yes, I have. And when you talk about, because, okay, well, let me just make this observation. People have this idea that, every single day what I'm seeing is what you see in Hollywood, like on the movie The Exorcist and things like that. Have I seen all that stuff? Yeah, I've seen all that stuff. But it doesn't happen only in about 7% of the cases.
Like heads spinning around and...
Oh, yeah, changing. Like I said, that's just all part of the morphing thing. The
like actually their head spinning?
No, but
that's Hollywood,
Yeah, that's Hollywood. I mean, the head spinning. I haven't seen that. I don't know of any exorcist who's seen that, but I have seen people's facial structure change. Well, my nickname for him was Charlie Brown, because anytime this demon would manifest, he had a normal facial structure. All of a sudden, whoom, it would go complete. His head would look like a beach ball. So this is not something that's normal. And it's not just me seeing this, it's all the people in the room, because we have several people that assist us during the process.
So is this the demons messing with your sense of vision when you're in front of something like this? Do you think the face actually changes shape to some degree? Where does this come from?
Yeah, there's three possibilities. If you're talking about something that is beyond the natural physical laws, then one of three things is either happening. It's either happening where the light hits, and then it's this is what Aquinas says. When the light hits the person as it's coming towards you, he changes the light as it's passing through the medium to come to you. The other one is they can change it in the actual sense faculty. So they're actually changing something. And they can also change it in your imagination, because they can affect your imagination. So they're changing it somewhere in that. Now, the imagination thing, I think, is really most predominant, because what you'll see is sometimes one person will see something and another person doesn't, or one person will hear something and someone else doesn't. And then that's an indicator that it's probably more on the imaginative side than it is actually on the senses. So there are different ways in which they can actually cause that. But to get back to this, so that, you can't give what you don't have, that's what we're actually looking for is there an indicator that this person is there something in them that is beyond human nature, that we call that preternatural, not supernatural, because that pertains to God, but preternatural. The other thing is and those are the primary signs. Then we have what we call secondary signs, and those are the psychological patterns that you'll see with people possessed, which you were talking about, Tim, before, where it's the animus delendi, where every single thing they do maximizes damage to within the capacity to do so. That's an indicator that there's a diabolic.
Explain that again.
In other words,
they do maximizes their capacity.
Yeah, there was a particular politician, I won't name who it was, but at one point I'm like, this guy's got to be under diabolic influence, because he was a master at every single thing he did, maximized the damage that he could do to our country within the capacities of his office. And you see this from time to time with people. They're just destructive everywhere they get, and then the malicious, right? The malice that you see, the consistent malice that you'll see.
Do you think that as atheism rises, is that or that people sort of recede from Christianity, demons are able to influence more in this country?
To some degree, but what it really boils down to is that the domain of the diabolic is what's sinful, or what we would say that is contrary to the natural law, or contrary to the way God designed us, which is what you were describing before. Human beings are designed to function a certain way. When people act contrary to that through their sinfulness and that type of thing, that actually empowers the demons and opens it, and it becomes because that's their domain, which is the sinful or the disordered. And so anytime we do that, it empowers them or opens up the door for their influence in that particular area. So the fact that in the culture we see it just getting worse and worse and worse, and people behaving in ways that are more and more unnatural or irrational even, is an indicator that the sin is slowly overtaking it. And how much diabolic influence is in a particular person's life is ultimately up to God to determine. But that's because even though we can open up the door, it's up to God to determine whether the demons can step across the threshold or not.
How does someone come to be possessed? Do they have to be open to it? Do they have to?
A lot of times, actually, are so. There's three possibilities for that open up the door for someone to become possessed. The first is where they do something seriously disordered, like getting involved in the occult or killing somebody or something like that. So that would be one way. And by the way, not everybody who does those things necessarily becomes possessed, but that would be so they have to do something that's pretty gravely disordered. The second is some serious grave disorder has to be committed against you. So this is one of the things that we see, that a large number of the women that come to us, about 50% of the women come to us, have either been raped, molested, or severely psychologically or physically traumatized. And so that disorder is, again, the domain of the demonic. And some people say, well, that's just not very fair. On the other hand, those people, as they work their way out of the possession, become some of the best and most virtuous people I've ever met, through that process. So that it does actually, God does permit it for a function for them. There's a good that he brings out of it. And then the last is purely by the will of God. Now, I've never seen those cases. I've read about them. For example, there was a nun who was possessed in Iowa in the 1930s. And at a certain point during the exorcisms, you get the demon to tell you, how did you get in? What was the cause? And they'll tell you very often. Now, part of the reason you want to know that is because how they got in is a lot of times it tells you how you're going to get them back out. But in this particular case, he said, what sin did she commit? And he said, she didn't commit any sin. Well, then what are you doing here? He said, there's a sin in the region and God wants reparation for it.
Wow.
So the bishop set up where the Catholics just started doing a lot of prayers to make reparation or restitution to God for this sin that was in the region, and then within a week she was freed. So
wow. What is the most common reason you hear for why the demon entered during this process?
I think a lot of it has to do with the most common thing has to do with the fact that women have been raped or molested in some fashion, and part of that has to do with the fact that people will say, well, it sounds to me like most of your cases are women. And I chalk that up to two things. One is that women guys will power through it more and just deal with it. Whereas women are like, I need help.
That's so funny. Women go to the doctor. Men won't even go to the Exorcist.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, I'm fine. I'll sleep it off.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
He's levitating and being like, it'll work itself out in the morning.
Yeah, he's like, I'll be fine in the morning.
Yeah. The other side of it is that women will actually stop and ask for directions.
Yeah.
Like, I got to ask somebody for help because I don't know what to do. I don't know what. So that's why we tend to see a lot of women. But at least for me, I tend to see a lot of that. Whereas other exorcists will see other things. So they'll see like, no, most of it's, I see, like one exorcist I know, he said most of the guys that I deal with are men who are, because they got involved with pornography or they got involved in certain kinds of things against, the Sixth Commandment or something. So that's usually what you'll see.
Yeah, and that's part of why I want to ask, because just for people in the audience to know the power of some of the things they might be messing around with. I've also heard it said by exorcisms that pornography is a gateway, which makes sense. It's the devil's iconography. It defaces the human form in a very particularly hideous way, and it ensnares people. And so it makes sense to me that would be something that a person could become possessed by using. And it's not to say that everyone who uses it just goes off and becomes possessed.
That's right.
For most people, the problem is like, it causes psychological and eventually physical problems for you sexually.
Right.
But there are some number of people it goes further than that.
Yeah, and in relationship to pornography, for example, part of it is, as I mentioned, that the Satanists actually taught the people producing the pornography that if you curse the master copy from which all the other copies are made, it will propagate down to the other copies, and it will boost the addictive effect of the pornography. So that's one of the reasons they do it. The other part of it, the other reason that it has the pornography is just because of the addictive aspect of it. But I think that in relationship to it's not always that people actually have done something wrong is why they're possessed. Although once the demon gets in, then he starts driving the really bad behavior. And so that's one of the reasons why I think this is a theory, this is one of my theories, is why you'll have women who actually, once they've had an abortion, all of a sudden that's when you see the real license in relationship to sexual matters really take off in their life. because all of a sudden there's a more of a diabolic influence. I'm not suggesting they're possessed, but there's a more of a diabolic influence.
Well, yeah, 100%.
So when you said with the story of this nun who was possessed, God wanted it to be. So that is, just simply put, God will send a demon to possess somebody?
At times, yeah.
Or he'll allow, basically, like he'll withhold the graces protecting you from possession. So it's not as if God, because ultimately he's in charge, and like the only reason demons haven't torn all of us to shreds is because he's preventing them in all moments from doing so, because they hate us and they'll take any chance to destroy us.
Yeah. Why do they hate us?
We're made in his image and likeness.
Yeah, because
I'll
we're
let
made
him.
like God. Yeah. Yeah, because we're made in the image and likeness of God. Also, it has to do with envy. They envy the good life that we have in this life. They envy it. And that's why they're constantly trying to destroy it. This is also why you see the people on the left, if you've ever noticed this, anytime communism or the left takes over, there's always a degradation of our quality of life. Always. And so that's one of the signs that, in fact, I did a whole series on how communist psychology is identical to diabolic psychology. But that's actually part of the what you see. The one thing that people always have to realize, though, is that God's not capricious in a certain sense. Now, we do have a thing called conscription, where we notice that it seems like demons are almost like drafted, like, okay, hey, you got to go deal with this particular problem. And he allowed it in, and then you'll find out later that he allowed the demon or commanded the demon, hey, go deal with this. For the person to become holier, the person to actually become more virtuous, but then also to get the demon his comeuppance. So he has to take a beating in the process.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War Podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.